Last night, during the first of 4 town hall meetings, I announced that we have a team of retired FBI, state troopers, and other law enforcement experts examining our clergy files. That work began last February with the files of seminarians and deacon candidates. I considered this step shortly after I arrived here in the Diocese of Dallas in February of 2017. Today, I announce that we will release the names of all clergy credibly accused of sexual abuse of minors in this diocese, dating back to 1950 through today. In doing so, the Diocese of Dallas joins the 14 other Catholic dioceses in the state of Texas, along with the Ordinariate of the Chair of St. Peter, in taking this action. The Texas bishops made this decision on September 30th, 2018. We are doing this as a part of our ongoing work to protect our children, create a safe environment, to promote healing for those who have been abused, and to demonstrate that we are focused in facing this issue. I owe it to the faithful of the Diocese of Dallas, and more importantly, I owe it to those who have been abused and their family. While opening our files to outside investigators and releasing the names is a necessary step of involving others into this process, I am also pleased with our Diocesan Review Board, a board of competent lay faithful who hold the diocese accountable. By having the involvement of all these people, it helps us in staying focused as we seek to do what is right. Last week, we celebrated the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, and as many of you know, the Lord appeared to him and said, "Francis, go rebuild my church because it is in ruins." Well, what I see is that when the church is in crisis, the Lord raises up saints. I call on the lay faithful of the Diocese of Dallas to help rebuild the church. This can't be left to the hierarchy of the church to handle alone, and I welcome the collaboration and the critical eye of people concerned for the protection of children. I recognize that this type of transparency and accountability and inclusion of the lay faithful is what our parishioners want and need. With 8.5 million Catholics in 1,320 Catholic parishes in the state of Texas, the endeavor to compile a comprehensive list of clergy who have been credibly accused of sexual abuse against a minor represents a major project. We have committed ourselves to this, and all dioceses in the state of Texas will publish their lists by January 31st, 2019. These lists will be updated as new information becomes available. My brother bishops across the state and I hope that this action can be a step that leads to healing for all those who have been harmed by members of the church. I add my sincere sorrow for the pain and suffering that victims have endured and the embarrassment that the Catholic faithful have experienced. As the Bishop of the Diocese of Dallas, I pledge that we will do our best to be accountable and to be transparent, because we are committed to addressing this evil and being the faithful disciples of Jesus Christ we say we are. Thank you. Credibly accused, it does come from the word credo, believe, that we would believe that it was true that an abuse took place. Now, if there were a conviction, of course, that's credibly accused. So, and when there's not a conviction, when through the investigation, you get a sense and truly believe the victim who has stepped forward that what they are saying is true.
Are there certain criteria you can be more specific about?
What we're going to do as a state is to make sure that the criteria is the same across the state. So let me ask that when we bring forth our lists, we will also bring forth that criteria.
Currently, who deems what is credible?
I'm sorry.
Currently, is there a committee that deems what is credible?
Oh, absolutely. As you heard me mention, the Diocesan Review Board, when there is an allegation that steps forward, first and foremost, we turn it over to law enforcement agencies. Secondly, we attend to the victim as much as we can. And thirdly, we then place it before our Diocesan Review Board. Our Diocesan Review Board is a board of lay faithful who are most competent. They are doctors, they are clinical psychologists, attorneys, educators, parents. And again, they are the ones who hold the diocese accountable. They assist in looking at the allegation and offering their critique as to the credibility of the accusation.
Bishop, is there a concern that you're now saying when you'll put this list out that there may be somebody who's had trouble that may disappear? I mean, are you concerned now that you know the list is going to come out, but yet the names have not come out yet?
I don't have that concern, because I think what we have to do is simply move forward. If that were the case, we do have to address it. Similar to what occurred with Father Edmundo Paredes, when we just simply received a silence on his end, then we utilized the services of a private investigator, because it's important that we get a handle on Father Paredes and others who have been credibly accused.
So at this point, I guess why wait until January to release these names? Is the investigation still going on for some?
Thank you, because as you can imagine, going back to 1950 and doing this statewide, it is an arduous task. It's something that we want to do intentionally, deliberately, and thoroughly. So it's going to take some time.
The team that you're working with, are they just working for, do you have a team that specifically works with the Dallas Diocese? Or are these former law enforcement officials working with all the dioceses? And also, can you tell us about how big this team is?
It's a multifaceted question. Allow me to then address that this team is not from Dallas. This team is national in scope. This team does indeed help other dioceses. I'm glad that I acquired this team early on, because this team is in high demand right now. The second part of your question was?
About how many make up the team and
Oh, we
And
just
they're
had the
FBI?
team in last week, and it was a team of 6
FBI agents?
former FBI agents and former state troopers and law enforcement agents.
Do they have any
And there's a third part of your question. I don't want it to go unanswered.
No, that was it.
Do you remember? No? Okay, I thought there was a third part. I'm
do
sorry.
they have any relation to the Catholic Church?
Well, they are, well, they're not all Catholic. They're not all Catholic. And yet, at the same time, they are very well versed with the child sexual abuse scandals of the church. And two in particular, also have worked in the area of child and youth protection for the church.
Are you able to list the names of this team?
I'm sorry.
Can we get the names of the team members at some point?
Allow me to get their permission first, before doing that and making that public.
The list, how many names are we talking about? 100, 200?
The list that we're looking at,
Yes.
we're going to have to wait and see. I would be remiss to try to give a number now prior to putting forth a list. I'd rather be accurate.
So the list at this point is not complete, you're still investigating?
Correct.
From
Correct.
what you know now, on this list, will there be familiar names, or will it be a surprise to people in terms of names and numbers?
I think there will be some familiar names, and this diocese has gone through some very difficult days. And so you're going to see some of those names repeated. I think that there may be some names that will be a surprise to people. But through it all, we do have to do our work and get a comprehensive list.
Are there any people who are on that list who are currently working as clergy now in the diocese or anywhere else?
I can assure you that there are no priests in any parish in this diocese who have been credibly accused of sexual abuse of a minor.
You use the analogy, Bishop, you use the analogy of St. Francis of Assisi. Would you say the church is in ruins now?
The church is definitely in crisis. There's no doubt about it. And we do need to rebuild this church. As I have said before, I'm committed to doing just that. I owe it to the faithful of this diocese that the bishop is indeed going to be the shepherd who protects them, and in particular, the young and the vulnerable. And so, yes, we do need to rebuild this church, and it's important that we do it. And in order to do it, as I mentioned, we can't just rely on the hierarchy of this church. It's important that we rely on the good lay faithful to assist who have a real care and concern for this church.
So
You
the lay
mentioned
faithful is the committee? That's
I'm
what-
sorry.
The lay faithful is the committee or the
Cool.
investigators?
Well, both. As I mentioned, we're pulling in various people. So we have people who are the investigators, and then we also have the Diocesan Review Board. We also have a whole team. Every parish in this diocese has a victims assistance coordinator and a safe environment coordinator. So again, it's important that we work in concert with all the lay faithful in order to create a safe environment. But to answer your question, we need to work together to create a safe environment.
You said that you had a private investigator looking for Edmundo Paredes. Has he been found yet?
No, he has not.
Do you have any idea where he might be?
I don't have any credible information. Many have suspected that he is back in his home country of the Philippines.
Bishop, in general, you were at St. Cecilia's last night. There was a lot of anger and emotion and people concerned about the crisis. Why has it taken the church so long to do something like this? Why couldn't they have done it 15 years ago when the bishops met here in Dallas, for example?
When I arrived and learned about Father Paredes at St. Cecilia's, that he was not managing the church well with the finances, I pulled him from that parish. After that, I learned of the sexual abuse of 3 young men. It was then that I contacted law enforcement agencies immediately. Right after that, we worked with those who were victims. It was this past August that I made the announcement at St. Cecilia's of why I pulled their priest, and I wanted to make sure that we did this swiftly in having a ceremony of sorrow and listening sessions. And of course, as you mentioned, last night was the very first, and it was at St. Cecilia's. I have a special care and concern for them. They did not ask for this. They do not deserve this.
But in terms of going back to 1950,
Okay,
that decision was made by the Texas bishops
collectively.
collectively.
Correct.
Why did it take them so long to do something like this if this crisis has been ongoing?
I think what we're looking at is ways in which we can continue to work at creating a safe environment and demonstrating our transparency. I truly believe that this is the first time an entire state has bound together in order to release names. And so I'm very pleased with my brother bishops in the state of Texas that we're able to exercise and demonstrate a collegiality in bringing the names of the accused forward.
And was this prompted by the Pennsylvania Attorney General report and some of the other states that are doing this kind of investigation?
Allow me to say that all of this is prompted by the various elements that have occurred within the church. Whenever you can even start with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the grand jury report, the discovery of Archbishop McCarrick and all that happened there, even our very own St. Cecilia's. There is, for me, a clear sense that there's some urgency, and we have to take some significant steps. And I believe that that's exactly what we're doing here in the state of Texas.
Bishop, it sounds like all of this is happening after the fact, after the allegation comes forward. What's happening before they enter the clergy? Is there anything happening at that stage?
Thank you so much, because when we look at those who desire to enter into ministry, first of all, you asked about those in seminary. Trust me, our men who enter seminary go through a very thorough review. That means psychological assessment. That means making sure that they possess a capacity to live a chaste, celibate life, that they understand what it is to truly be a priest, because it's important for us to place a man in a parish who has the ability to live out a chaste, celibate life. For those who are entering into any type of ministry, seminarians included, they all go through a background check. So they go through a law enforcement background check. And when I say all ministers, that means volunteers and people who work in all parishes. So as I indicated earlier, there are safe environment coordinators in every one of the parishes. It is their job, their task, and their responsibility to make sure that the people who serve in the parishes are indeed fit to serve in that capacity.
Just if you can clarify that, if I understood correctly,
Sure.
none of the current priests on the diocese are on the list. And part two is, any law enforcement agencies involved in this investigation besides your group of investigators, meaning the Dallas Police Department or the sheriff?
Thank you. What I heard is a two-part question. So in the first part, allow me to answer by saying that there are no priests in ministry within the Diocese of Dallas who have a credible accusation of abuse against a minor. None whatsoever in any one of our parishes. This is exactly what I needed the team for, to look at all this, so that as the bishop of this diocese, I can assure the faithful that we are sending priests to them who are good, dedicated, and committed men. Secondly, when asking the question, your second part, I'm getting...
Local law enforcement agencies
Thank you.
involved in this?
Yes, of course. We're still working with law enforcement agencies in the Father Edmundo Paredes case. So you can be sure that as much as we pull in some former law enforcement agencies to look at our files, we're still working with law enforcement agencies on the Paredes case, which is an active case.
Bishop, what do you want to say to the victims?
Oh. To the victims, as the bishop of this diocese, I express my heartfelt sorrow for the pain and the suffering that they have endured at the hands of those who were to be trusted. And to their families also, the anguish that they have experienced, that their church failed them. And I recognize that I and thoroughly understand the frustration and the anger that they throw at the church because of this. I need to assure them of my sorrow. I need to also assure them that we're going to do our best in making this right. And to the Catholic faithful who are absolutely embarrassed by what has happened in the church, I pledge to them that we are going to truly be accountable, and that we are going to create a safe environment, and that the priests who serve and the bishops who serve and the deacons who serve, that we're truly going to be the men we say we are.
But Bishop, you're confident they're not working in this diocese. Are you absolutely confident they're not in other dioceses around the country or probably around the world?
Sir, I am truly responsible for the Diocese of Dallas. I cannot answer to those who serve in other dioceses. I apologize for that.
Now, are these,
But I trust you understand.
are these
Thanks.
just diocesan priests, or does this investigation include those who belong to orders like the Benedictines and the Franciscans?
Thank you for your question, because absolutely, the question is that referring to all priests who serve in this diocese? And the answer is yes. And the all includes the category of diocesan priest, retired diocesan priest, religious priests who belong to various religious communities, and also priests from outside the diocese.
One more question about credibly accused and that definition. When this list comes out in next year, can we assume credibly accused means that law enforcement is involved in some way, aside from the 6-member team which you all assembled? In other words, are there going to be any credibly accused people, clergy, who outside law enforcement have not handled?
So you ask, can you assume that law enforcement agencies are involved with these cases? Allow me to say to you, I guarantee you that law enforcement agencies will be involved. That is how we respond. And with those who are credibly accused, allow me to share with you that if there's a credible accusation, we possess a zero tolerance policy. They are removed from ministry immediately. My friends, I do want to thank you for your time. I also want to say to you that the victims who have stepped forward have shown much courage. And as the Bishop of the Diocese, I am grateful for that courage. I want to pledge to them my care and the concern for them and for their family members. Again, to the lay faithful of this diocese and members of the Catholic Church, I'm just so sorry for the embarrassment that they have to go through. And I want to say thanks also to the media, because all of you help us stay accountable too in the work that we have to do. And bless you in your good work. Thank you.